All right, guys. So Michael Moore has a spicy, scorching hot take for us here that I wanted to lay out for you. So he wrote on his website, Bucket List Joe. President Biden has 100 days left in office. He has newly granted Supreme Court powers with immunity and no political consequences. What if he were to use them? So this is a really, really interesting article here from Michael Moore. Let's run through it. He says, some people are now calling Biden a lame duck president. But then it occurred to me today, you're not done. You've still got 100 days left in office, and the Supreme Court has just granted you superpowers and immunity. You don't have to answer to anyone. For the first time in over 50 years, you don't have to campaign for anything. You are the opposite of lame Joe, and you are not a duck. You, sir, are the president of the United States, and for the next 100 days, you have tremendous power. The only people you have to answer to is us, the people who put you there. You have an extraordinary opportunity to make a whole bunch of things happen. Great things, important things. With a simple stroke or two of your presidential pen, you can make life better for millions of people in ways you never would have dreamed possible. You will leave the White House a hero. So he put together a bucket list here, and he basically says to him, bro, these things are supported by the majority of Americans, and also you have full immunity. The Supreme Court just said you have full immunity. So if anything is within the realm of your official duties, right? Anything where there's even a stretch of an argument that that's your official duties to do it, there are no consequences. You're not committing any crime. You're not doing anything wrong. So let's walk through a bunch of the things he says. The first thing he says, officially declare the Equal Rights Amendment for women as the 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. See, all right, I don't want to get too nitpicky here, but some of these things that he makes it seem like you could just do with a swipe of a pen, you can't. Like, you can't just pass a constitutional amendment via executive order. That's not the way that works. And he would say, well, the Supreme Court just gave him immunity. And it's like, it's true they did, but that just means none of this, if Joe Biden were to do it, none of it is criminal. It doesn't mean they won't, like, hear a case on it and immediately slap it down and say you can't do that, right? So now you could say, well, we got to do something to, get the Supreme Court to fall back in line too. I agree with that. But I don't know, to just say do a constitutional amendment, that's the swipe of a pen, that's not a thing, right? But anyway, let's keep going through it. I don't want to be too critical. Cancel all student debt now. You ran on the promise to cancel all student loan debts. Now it's the time to do it. Break the law if you have to. Remember, you have immunity. You have made admirable efforts so far, but the Republican Supreme Court of right-wing Catholics, along with the Republican Congress of election-denying traitors, keep trying to stop you. So yeah, it's true. They've tried a bunch of times, and the courts have slapped them down here and there, and some parts are allowed, but some parts aren't allowed. But look, I actually do think they have the legal authority based on, it's like the Higher Education Act of like 1965 or something like that. It literally says the Secretary of Education, at the behest of the president, can do whatever they want with all of the debt that the U.S. government holds. And I think it's like 90% of student debt is held by the government. So yeah, that shouldn't be, like, for the Supreme Court to be against that means the Supreme Court is just legally incorrect, constitutionally incorrect, right? So that I'd be fine. Yeah, cancel all student debt with a swipe of a pen and then make them slap it down. And then if they slap it down, you say to them, that's great. Let me see you stop me with your army. Oh, that's right. You don't have an army. And by the way, we already got rid of the debt. We don't even know what the numbers are anymore. Sorry, it's gone, right? Like that, you can win that battle. All right, more. Cancel medical debt too. I love that. By the way, a lot of Democratic governors are already doing this. It's the best thing all these Democratic governors are doing. They're buying up medical debt for pennies on the dollar and just wiping it out for the residents of their state. So Michael Moore says Americans owe $220 billion in medical debt. And you can make a deal and for pennies on the dollar and just wipe that out. That would be, okay. If you do that and that alone, Biden's numbers will go up like 3 or 4 points and it'll help Kamala for the next election. Like, that is a game changer. Close Guantanamo Bay. It's insane that fucking place is still open. He could do that now, with or without the Supreme Court getting involved, with or without legislation from Congress. That he could close on his own. That's no problem. Free Cuba, free our souls. So I guess normalize relations with Cuba. That's good. Be Israel's best friend. Stop the slaughter. That he could do. He could withhold weapons and money, and he could do it like now. He's the commander-in-chief. He doesn't need any other change. He could just do that. Totally agree with that. He says, back in the USSR, keep your comrades warm. Similarly, the senseless destruction of Ukraine must end. Putin does not want to be Trump's friend. In fact, Putin threw Trump under the bus. Blah, blah, blah. I think he goes on to say, you have to make a deal vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine. That's what this point is. Empty federal death row. Free Leonard Peltier. Mr. President, Leonard Peltier is 2 years younger than you. Mr. Peltier has now been in prison for 46 years. To put that another way, 3 years after you entered the United States Senate, Mr. Peltier was locked up. I don't think I need to tell you that this is a very long time. Think of all that you have experienced these past 46 years. May I refresh your memory of the facts of the case? Leonard Peltier, a Native American civil rights activist, was pursued and surveilled by the FBI because of his political engagement. The evidence at his trial included conveniently altered details and a key witness who was coerced into testifying. Now, one of the lead prosecutors in Mr. Peltier's case, a U.S. attorney, James Reynolds, has written to you asking for Mr. Peltier's release. With time and the benefit of hindsight, Mr. Reynolds wrote, I have realized that the prosecution of and continued incarceration of Mr. Peltier was and is unjust. Okay. Pardon Edward Snowden. That's number 10. Pardon Sister Carol Gilbert and posthumously Sister Jackie Hudson and Sister Ardith Plott. In October 2002, these 3 Dominican nuns dressed in the white hazmat suits broke into a nuclear missile site in Colorado. They used a hammer to bang on a nuclear missile silo loaded with Minuteman III missiles that was armed with a 20-kiloton nuclear bomb. They made the sign of the cross on the silo's lid in their own blood and said a prayer. Oh God, help us be peacemakers in this hostile world. Later, Sister Ardith would recount, every movement of our body was a liturgy. The 3 nuns were arrested. This was not their first run-in with the law. As members of the peaceful and anti-nuclear Plowshares movement, Sister Carol had previously been arrested at the Pentagon in the mid-1990s, and in 1998, they were arrested after attending an air show at Andrews Air Force Base and banging on a B-52 bomber with a hammer and pouring their blood on it. 2 years later, they entered another Air Force base and put their blood on a fighter jet. So these are like anti-nuclear, anti-war activists who are doing this. He wants to pardon them. Ban all spam text messaging, including political fundraising. Yeah, that's so true. I get so many of these bullshit fucking texts. Grant clemency to non-violent drug offenders, many of whom need help and recovery, not prison time. Like your son, Hunter. True. So basically, look, what he's saying is the Supreme Court granted you total immunity. Fucking lean into it, you dumb bitch. The Republicans are going to use the expansive powers they were just granted. It's guaranteed they're going to use it. Now, maybe you're an institutionalist. Maybe you wish everybody followed the institutions and the rules and the regulations and the norms and all that. It'd be lovely if we lived in that world. We don't live in that world. The Republicans are going to use these expansive powers they were just granted. For you to say, I'm taking it off the table for me to ever use them, that's like fighting in a boxing match with your hands tied behind your back. I mean, that's what it is, right? That's just what it is. And so you want to do that? Okay, but, you're going to piss off your base. You're going to make the country be worse off as a result of it because the right is going to go far right and implement their agenda, and you're going to do nothing or get milquetoast centrist stuff through because you won't use these expansive powers. Some of these things I think Biden can definitely do, but some of them I think Michael Moore is a little bit Pollyannish and naive about what can be done through executive power. Again, the immunity thing means Biden can do almost anything that's part of his official duties, and it's not a crime. But that doesn't mean that if he does something policy-wise, agenda-wise, that they won't just turn around and slap that down too, right? But then the question is, which things is he actually allowed to do? Which things is he not allowed to do? Which things is he actually allowed to do, but they'll say he's not allowed to do? And what do you do about that? There's different categories, right? So it's a lot more complex than he makes it think. But the general idea is correct of lean into it, use your power, do some good things for people, and then we'll all be better off. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.